future comes to scream.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Very good. Very good. You know, we have a story here, right? And it goes back a while just because of our time together back in the early days and, you know, and going to meetings and whatever. And I remember at one point that we were going to a lab somewhere. I don't even know where this was. And I had another guy in the car. I think I had rented a convertible and we were going to the lab and we pulled up and we had on old school rap. And that's sort of kind of where the jam between the two of us started. So anyway, yeah. I think it was Doug. Do you remember Doug? I can't remember. Anyway, been too long.
So many people.
So many people
come and go and through your life through in this business. It's fun though, man. It's also fun. You go back to the academy or to the meetings and you see people that you worked with, and it's like one big family. It's
absolutely
super fun.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're not two old geezers reminiscing. We have a really exciting and interesting show for you today. A great guest, as usual. We always have the best guests. And we're here for them. And this is a really interesting company called CustomSurg. And Valentin Splett is the CEO of CustomSurg. And I saw them at OTA last year and at the Academy this past year and was just really taken with their vision.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to have Valentin and join us. So here we go. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Valentin Splett, how are you?
I'm really good.
Welcome to the jam session.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's great to have you. So, Tim, why don't you start by sharing with us kind of some background on about you and the founding of the company and the problem of you're solving, sort of lay the groundwork for us, and then let's go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I would say I'm a pretty exotic founder in our space. I'm neither a surgeon nor an engineer. I actually started on the business side, but founding, scaling, selling several companies in healthcare and medtech, working on the consulting side, working in BD in many different countries. I found my passion in helping clinicians and technical people turn things into reality on the market. And then I would say CustomSurg was really the opportunity and the company I've waited my whole career to build, because I founded it with two friends I've known for a long time. Thomas, who's a biomedical engineer, and Arvind, who's a trauma surgeon. He's the director of orthopedic trauma innovation at Harvard Medical School. He lives and breathes complex trauma. Whenever you come with a really bad articular fracture to him, his eyes will light up, and he'll think about any potential aspect to fix that. And it was really the stars aligning for me to get into this space and dedicate resources, relationships, time, and passion to CustomSurg and to orthopedic trauma.
So was this a problem that the surgeon found that he needed solving, or was it both a combination of there's this technology over here, because some of what you're doing is maybe adapted from other spaces? How has the CustomSurg evolved? What exactly are you doing, and how are you scaling?
So the problem we've identified came from the OR. And it's been a conversation that went on for many years before we started first a research project and then a company around it. And it was, my two friends, Arvind and Thomas, who had lived together in Boston. Thomas was working in hip and knee, where planning software, streamlined workflows, navigation, and robotics are standard of care. And Arvind, who had back then, I think, been a fellow or a resident, and shared his experience about how complex trauma is planned and treated intraoperatively. And that's when we realized, there's a huge need in simplification, improving, and also acceleration of care and surgeries in trauma. And then we found an academic partner that was just the right environment here in Switzerland to, work on the core technologies, spin this out and turn it into a real company. But I would say, I think our guiding principle is that the surgeons are really the North Star. What they need is going to be what we respond to, what we develop, what we roll out, and then everything else follows from that.
Right.
Yep.
So preoperative planning and trauma, you're focusing on articular fractures, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah, so articular, periprosthetic, anything that's complex, everything that's difficult, takes up time in the OR, has a potentially expensive implant configuration. And especially in clusters that have a high complication rate, which if you compare trauma to other orthopedic procedures, it's very, very significant. So, and there initially we played around with patient-specific implant design, guide design, but we realized that current implants have come a long way. They're actually really good. Challenges in picking, placing, and the challenges in often in the reduction and in the access. Which is why we decided, adding a digital layer into these procedures is the right thing to do and the right approach.
So walk us through the workflow. Patient comes in on a chopper, has a smashed up proximal tibia.
Yeah,
It's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Tell us how the surgeon plans. How do they interact with CustomSurg? How do they take that plan and execute in the operating room? Kind of walk us through the workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we realized really quickly, talking to more and more trauma surgeons, is that they're pretty busy people, right? So it was quite clear, if we add even a single step to their daily practice, this could derail no matter, the clinical benefits and the impact. So that was really an aha moment when we realized, there's a huge problem with the status quo of planning, but we're not going to give them a software to plan. We're going to turn their scans into plans, period. So the analogy is, if you don't have time to drive a car, a rental car is not right for you. You need an Uber ride. And that's the approach we've taken with CustomSurg. So the CT scan comes in and we flip it around for next day surgery and give the surgeon the best possible plan for each patient.
So it's a 24-hour turnaround?
Yep.
Okay.
And then do you have suggested placement of implants? And then can the physicians manipulate that in your software? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we onboard surgeons, we learn what their preferences are in terms of which vendor to use. We know what kind of typical treatment approaches that they have for certain anatomies. And then we really work with that to give them a couple of different options that they can visualize in 3D. Obviously, the segmentation of the fracture and the reduction is always the same, no matter what implant configuration. But then along with that, the technology provides intraoperative guidance, so we can map any configuration to a 2D image as well, the way it shows up on a fluoro. And then also we can provide an automated bill of materials for each configuration. And so we really, some surgeons are really OCD about planning, and we want to work with them. And some surgeons are super busy and they send a scan, and then we got to work with that too. So, that's another aspect on how we have captured the surgical and clinical reality in terms of turning the input into the personalized output that works for each surgeon.
So in a situation, because thinking about the 24-hour turnaround, I know that you probably, is it possible for that to be instantaneous eventually? And
yes.
The reason, okay, great.
Yeah, and we're working towards that, right? So the technology in the back end, going from segmentation to reduction to automated implant placement to going towards predictive analytics and actually giving surgeons insights into what configurations are more stable and superior to others. That's a very ambitious development project. And
Yes.
It's right on the technology frontier where, computational modeling and AI are in just at the brink of making things possible that even 2-3 years ago were absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah.
And so we are continuously iterating on the speed and on the features. So we have a roadmap where this eventually becomes instantaneous. But right now, also focusing mostly on fractures that are staged, procedures where patient may be in an X for a while. We are targeting the difficult fractures where this is the standard of care. And then for those, we're always in time. Right?
Because if you can address the worst case scenarios, you can do anything.
That's right. And there's, the highest clinical value is where the challenges are the biggest.
Yep. That's excellent.
Yeah, so this is interesting. You're entering a space that currently doesn't really have a commercial solution, which brings up some interesting opportunities, but also some challenges in your go-to-market and how you're thinking about that. So talk a little bit about the business model that you guys are doing now and how you see that evolving over time.
Yeah, no, very happy to. So I think the right way to think about this is it always starts with what surgeons need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see it as, there's a soil. I need to prepare the soil, make sure anything grows. And that means we got to be really intentional about listening to surgeons and asking them the right questions. And, not try to do everything for everybody, but being intentional about who to address, how, and what are their real needs. And then on that soil, we now can plant different things. One is our hospital revenue model, which is rolling out. We just launched an early access program, but we have already numerous paying institutions. And we've spent maybe not as much time as with the surgeons, but we spent a considerable amount of time with hospitals understanding what does it really mean for them if they can turn around ORs faster, right? If you Google, you'll find a dollar per minute value, but that doesn't translate into reality often, right? It's different and it's much more nuanced. So showing them the value of that and then showing them in their system with their surgeons that it works is a crucial step we had to take, and that has now really started bearing fruits. On the other hand, we're working with many different implant manufacturers, some big ones and many very innovative and new ones as well, where we partner again around surgeons' needs to show and explore and show and then scale together what the digital decision layer can be for specific implant designs, right? There's very innovative companies that have brought out super interesting implant designs for trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, lack adoption because of confidence of new users or because of surgeons not being confident in edge cases. And some of the features are poorly communicated in theory, but surgeons may not always have the comfort to try it clinically right away. And so CustomSurg can really help bring down that barrier because we're, anatomy agnostic, implant manufacturer agnostic, and we can show what a specific implant can achieve for a specific patient that's on the table in 2 days, and it can be implemented clinically.
So it's truly, in this world of another big buzzword that everybody's using, and it goes hand in hand with AI to a degree, personalization.
Yeah, 100%.
That's awesome.
100%.
That's awesome. It's critical, and that's great. Thank you for answering Mike's question on the model.
The MedTech Jam session is brought to you by Valentin. If you're ready to achieve commercial velocity faster with a unified mobile command center, visit us at velotoro.ai.
I think we met on an MSK Innovations podcast.
Yeah, I remember the day.
About maybe a year ago. I don't know, something like that. And I was fascinated then. And you were already building commercially.
Yep.
Right. Without getting into too much detail, how present are you in Europe? How present are you in the US?
So I think one of the great decisions we've taken is that we wanted to have a cleared clinical product as soon as possible without, being too greedy on technology development, right? Mm-hmm. And so that has allowed us to, roll out quickly I mean, we've gotten a 510K breakthrough designation and CE during our seed phase, which I'm really proud of the team of
Oh yeah,
achieving.
bro.
And
That's-
we've
yeah.
gotten a huge amount of procedures in several countries now. So in the US and Europe, we're scaling with some partners, and then we have an early access program in both regions where surgeons and hospitals that want to go all into this early are now enrolling. So, again, being a 15 people company in the first year on the market, we're intentional about who are our early adopters, who are the surgeons that want to push the envelope on this and get it early, and also benefit from all the pretty awesome co-development and publication opportunities that this provides, because it's really a greenfield.
Yeah.
Really a greenfield. And that
Yeah.
that's probably a bit on the flip side of what you had mentioned, Mike. If you're building a new category, there's no blueprint on the business model, right? There's maybe comparative cases from other areas, but you have to iterate through trial and error, build it yourself. And you just have to have the confidence to try different things in different areas with different customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is your model, do you guys have in a 15 employee company, is it a direct sales rep model plus distributors, or is it strictly distributors?
So right now it's mostly direct model.
Okay.
We work with referrals. We work with friends and family surgeons and reps, of course.
That's great.
But we're not looking to scale nationally in the US in the next year.
Okay.
And going back to that, we're really at day one of this. And this is not like the product life cycle of an implant where you have a design lock-in for 10 years. This is something we literally can update every few months.
Yep.
And so in which direction does it go? Anatomy-wise, feature-wise, do we do more intraoperatively? Do we do more predictive analytics? We want to take these steps together with our early adopters. And so I think they're going direct early really pays off.
Mm-hmm.
If you're serious about having these conversations, being in the OR elbow to elbow with the surgeon as much as possible, you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to learn a lot how actually crazy difficult it is to be a trauma surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
level 1 and 2 centers, and how crazy difficult it is to just understand, reduce, and fix these fractures, and how the opportunity to simplify that job, give surgeons more clarity, more confidence, eventually leading to better outcomes and certainly more efficiency. The opportunities are everywhere. Like every step in the OR you see, you can think of ways how a digital layer improves this dramatically.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. To that point, I think, simplicity is a key here, right? Way back in the day when we were just starting navigation, everything was about the GUI. And the thing I think about is I'm the doc. It's 2 a.m. I've just got out of the bed, ran to the hospital, and does it make me just do a phenomenal job? Okay. And I'm talking about when you get to the point of instantaneous, right? Because I know that's your vision, to where I'm like, I will never, ever do another procedure without this.
Yeah, I love that thought. I think
and that's a whole nother benefit because you're playing in the trauma realm.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So I think the main drivers of adoption that we've seen is really, approach, reduction, just the clarity in execution. And then another big one is aligning the whole team in the OR. Mm-hmm. These articular fractures, we were in an elbow fracture a week ago. It was 5 hours, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a big team that has to work together to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So, I'm talking scrub nurse, x-ray tech, I'm talking sales rep, surgeon, attendings, maybe fellows. if everybody knows what's the plan, you can visualize that and have it next to the intraoperative imaging, you gain so much time. Like it's so much simpler. It's so much better. And especially if you don't have always the same team at the table, it really makes the collaboration much more efficient and also enjoyable. That's that's one of the main things that we witness now.
That's awesome.
Well, I think the collaboration is important now that I'm better understanding this. It seems like the attendings, the residents, the fellows, even in difficult cases where you say, you know what, I want my mentor to look at this before we go in the operating room. I suspect there's a way in which users can invite other people in to look at their plan and to help dissect it, digest it, and refine it, because it's all virtual and it's all, digital.
Absolutely. And from the get-go, we were following surgeons around and looking what devices they would use. And there's a lot of clunky hospital IT out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
We said, you know what, 2 things. It's got to work on your iPhone, and it's got to be without a password.
Nice.
And I think that's pretty unique. I don't know of a lot of other medical device software that's cleared and has managed to show to regulators that it's still a safe product. It's still compliant and GDPR compliant to handle it this way. And that's key because the reality is these plans are shared in all kinds of channels.
Yeah.
And you want that, you don't want to create barriers that say, oh yeah, well, this plan is for you, but if you don't log in within 2 minutes, you're locked out or whatever. You want collaboration, you want input and alignment around these difficult procedures.
And surgeons love to collaborate with one another.
Oh yeah, for
They
sure.
love to get the feedback and
brag, So
True.
can you believe this case?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. They all, this space well if you've experienced that.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like you have been very capital efficient. Congratulations, and taking advantage of both non-dilutive sources of funding and traditional sources of funding. Kind of tell us where you are in that journey and where you're going next.
Yeah. So I think first I'd like to mention I have the dream team for this. Yeah. So on the tech side, software, biomedical engineering, surgeons, regulatory, marketing, sales. I cannot imagine having better people than what we have now at CustomSurg. And everybody's super driven to make this happen daily. Like I'm getting goosebumps telling you about it because it's so real. So we're early commercial. So we're raising a Series A for commercialization. We're looking to do that with a moderate growth in headcount, right? But really huge growth in speed adoption and also clearance of new features that go towards clinical outcomes and predictive analytics.
Mm-hmm. Based on where you are in that process of that raise, of course, I know the answer to this question is yesterday, but when do you see that this round will close for you? And realistically?
Realistically, so we basically opened it 3 weeks ago with our CE marking. Some very promising conversations. First early DD, but we're looking to get to a term sheet agreement in Q3 and close by the end of this year. And then obviously, sooner is better, but I think
that's why it's a silly question.
Optimistic about, yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So another point I wanted to ask you about, it works with any imaging modality, correct?
It's at this point, it's CT based.
Okay.
So, I think we're going to look at MRI for, some indications where that's the standard modality. Mm-hmm. And then there's some interesting tech out there for X-ray based, auto segmentation diagnostic or digital diagnostic tech that we may want to partner with. Mm-hmm. In the medium term, the 2D and the 3D world are going to, fuse.
Got
like
it.
If you look at what's out there and what's happening in image processing and AI, it's unbelievable.
Yep. X-ray 3D.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
And that's I think And that's another reason why, surgical planning, it's been around for a long time in orthopedics, and there are several companies that have tried to launch stuff in trauma. But 2D in complex trauma, it doesn't work.
Nope.
Right? It eats up more time than what you gain in terms of benefits and clarity and efficiency.
Yep.
And so we are now in a world where the CT is standard of care, but we're monitoring very closely image fusion tech and how in the future this is going to be a scan to plan functionality, no matter the image modality.
Mm-hmm. And to that point with so you know how big the fluoro basis is in the United States. I think, and there's been little arguments that pop up going, oh, it's going to go away. And I'm like, it's going to be a while. And so I think that's going to be a critical element, right? The ability to take the X-ray to 3D, to your point.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And with the version we just released, we have some first functionality on matching the two worlds, right?
Nice.
So that's very powerful. Like, surgeons look at it and like, oh, wow, that's really cool.
Nice.
And especially like, some surgeons, previously were like, yeah, I've done so many of these. I don't need to plan them anymore. I just, go in the OR and know what to do. But now they see, oh, okay, actually, I think this is really, really something. So, and then there's a lot more room to grow. And then obviously we want to be intentional about integration, right?
Yep.
We really want to now invest a lot of resources integrating into all imaging vendors and systems, or do we just take this in cohorts and do it with companies first where there is traction and an alignment on vision? And without going too much into detail, but we're partnering with companies from that space that share our vision and definitely see that, the planning software to navigation to maybe robotics, it's gonna come to trauma. Like, it's so clear that there is such a clinical need, and the technology is there and it's happening. So that's very promising. But you're right, Chris. I mean, you've been around for a while, and I don't think the fluoro is going to go. It doesn't have to, because you can augment it, you can evolve it, and it's still a really powerful tool surgeons train with, and that
it's too convenient.
I know, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of room to optimize that whole intraoperative experience and the fusion of preoperative planning and scanning with intraoperative fragment reduction, and then future robotic surgical manipulation of the fragments, and then the appropriate execution of the plan that you've delivered to them with whatever fixation construct is the future, I think, Valentin, and you guys are really onto something exciting. So
yeah, definitely. I do have another question, but I've got two actually. Cybersecurity.
Oof.
Yep. Heard
Tell
that.
me all about it.
Yeah.
and the reaction that, because the hospitals, I mean, golly, they are archaic.
Yeah.
And of course ASCs are the bomb. So how you address it? And what's the reaction?
Right. So this is not my first venture and not the first one in medtech, but the first in orthopedics. So I've learned over time, slowly but steadily, that you just got to meet your customers where they are. And hospitals are not stuck in the 80s voluntarily. I mean, at least some of them, right? It's because IT systems have evolved over time. It's not so easy to retire legacy systems. So you got to see that as, a living technology that's not static at all. And it has such a crucial function in hospitals today.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital director recently told me we're actually an IT company with a clinical marketing and communications layer. And it was a joke, but there's some kernel of truth in it, right? So going back to your question, digressing a bit, we, play this by the book in terms of certification, HIPAA compliance, pen testing, internal audits, external audit, external certification, external experts, fire drills for ransomware attacks, anonymizing data at source, because the data we need as a ground truth for planning
Mhm.
super sensitive and valuable.
Yep.
So we do that by the book, and that's an area where never going to cut corners, and I think it pays off.
And so you guys are probably, I think it's ISO 27001.
So not yet. We're ISO, we're
Yeah.
FDA, GDPR and HIPAA compliant, and we're getting external audited. And in addition, we do internal audits with external people. And then 27001 is something we're currently looking at. But you want to be smart about which regulatory heft you can take on at what point.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
What we've learned is that hospitals consider it a nice to have at this point, not a must have yet.
Yeah.
But it's something we are looking at now, and we're going to have in the near future for sure.
And for an eventual exit, it will be need to have. No doubt.
I trust you on that. You know how to exit, Chris.
Listen, but what's funny though is that while the OrthoGrid train was full octane moving ahead, was when they dropped the new ISO, and they're like, wait, what? Wait, we got to do what?
Yeah.
And so it was, let's get this knocked out and let's get this set up and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it's just so relevant, right?
No, absolutely. And I think in entrepreneurs circles, a lot of, buddies and friends are in medtech. There are serial founders, investors. And there's a tendency to kind of complain about regulation, especially in Europe, because it's now a bit clunkier than the FDA. It used to be the other way around, but unfortunately we've passed you guys. But at the end of the day, you have to see it for what it is, which is it gives you credibility. It's making you safe, adaptable, trustworthy, and you just have to execute smart. You don't have to build a regulatory team like the big guys do.
No.
But you have to be effective, and you also have to have smart people who know the space, and they know, in which areas can you be efficient, and in which areas of the regulatory journey do you have to go the whole way, because there's no other way. And knowing that from day one, incorporating it into the development as a startup, with a startup mindset, but still playing for real, that's so essential. So yeah.
For sure. That's very sage, practical advice for startups looking to get into emerging enabling tech, because you're right. It's easy to get frustrated with, oh my God, I have all these regulations to, and there are other things in just software outside of med device and pharma and life sciences, for the obvious reasons, have a higher bar. Because we're taking care of patients. And so we should have a higher bar. You should just embrace it and lean into it as you are, Valentin. I think that's really sage advice. Thank you for that. Well, it sounds like you're raising around. Valentin, where can people go to learn more about CustomSurg, to connect with you? If they're investors and they want to invest, if they're surgeons and they want to learn more, where can they go and find more about your company?
Absolutely. So, we're raising our Series A. We're open to both institutional and private investors. We're building up momentum. We have some surgeons and some private individuals who have invested from day one, along with some first institutionals. So we have really happy about the cap table we have today, because it goes way beyond the capital we need. It goes into really people who have built medtech companies and sold them for a lot of money before, and they know the journey and everything. So I think the best way is to go to CustomSurg.com, and then if you click on contact, it lands in my colleague's inbox who sits next to me. And the other way to do this is follow us on LinkedIn, connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'm still not that much of a celebrity, and I don't plan on being, so I can read those messages personally and certainly answer them, whether you're a tech enthusiastic trauma surgeon and you want to try, you want to learn more, or you want to invest and become part of the journey, or partner in any other way, please reach out. And I think we have a big ambitious project, very transformative, and I believe that it takes the effort of many and many hands and minds, And so I'm, really open to all of the conversations and connections that come out of this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Conferences, what are you planning US wise for the Q3, Q4?
So my wife and I have a baby on the way, so I'm going to be grounded for US travel for a couple of months, but we're certainly going to OTA. There's a couple of local conferences that we want to hit as well. In Europe, we're going to go to the German, it's kind of European thing, DKOU. We're going to go to the AO. We have numerous educational events, a bit smaller audience, but great platform for us to connect with surgeons, go crazy on how you plan and, how you not plan and everything. So that's coming up. And then, of course, AAOS, February next year is And then there's a local fracture conference that's organized by a couple of surgeons, and it's amazing in the Southeastern Fracture Conference. So we're definitely going to go back to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Southeastern Fracture Conference. If I just misspelled it, because my memory is not always the best.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Basically, everything where the innovators are, where the industry goes within partnering and enabling lens, and certainly everywhere where there's trauma surgeons. That's where we're
awesome.
Great. Well, congratulations on the progress you've made. All the best in your upcoming raise and your continued success and evolution. And thanks so for joining us here on. Crowd's going wild.
Yeah. And I was going to state, I have submitted your company for MNBC.
Thanks. Yes. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, we went last year. We're definitely going to go back. Hopefully we'll get a slot. It's competitive.
Best one.
Yeah.
You
know a guy.
Wouldn't know who. Yeah. Well, thanks again. This has been amazing. I've, thanks to your outreach, I've listened to many of your episodes now running or,
just great. Tell all your friends. At least we know one person listens.
Yeah. I know at least 15 they're going to listen to this. And if I may, as a last shout out, I just want to thank my team and our collaborators. The journey we've been on has been, beyond words. And every day is so privileged and excited to be in this field and work with all these amazing people.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship is a team sport, not an individual sport. So, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us with another great episode of MedTech Jam Session. Valentin, Splett, thank you so much. We'll see you on the other side.